Mental health is a very difficult subject to talk about because it means quite different things to different people. First of all, we are talking about mental health. That can include ill health, but we should also concentrate on the positive, that is mental health. And that when somebody is suffering from an issue in mental health, that it's not a moral failure, it's not a defeat. Sometimes it had a sort of stigma attached to it. It's like any other health. If I had, for example, had a broken leg, nobody would be the slightest bit disturbed if I went and got a plaster on it. In fact, people would say it's an awful idiot if he didn't go to get a plaster on it. Yet, if I'm suffering from depression, sometimes there's a stigma about admitting that in public. Well, I don't know of anybody who doesn't have moods and periods in life when they're very depressed. If there's a big disappointment, a breakdown in a relationship, if there's authority comes down on it, I know that from myself, and when the Vatican tried to silence me, it was an enormous mental health, which actually had an effect on my physical health. Now, that's normal. It would have been very abnormal if it hadn't. It's the same when a person is going through grief, for example. It's quite obvious that there are times that the loss of a loved one changes your entire life, your entire values, your entire reason for living. And it would be very, very foolish not to understand that that will have an effect on your physical life as well if it's not treated carefully. Grief is a form of mental health that we should look at often because it affects everything else in our lives. And that people think that they're lost forever. Yet there is great counselling, there's great help. And unless you go through grief, it will go through you. That's the point. And it is a matter of going through grief, not avoiding it, going under it, going around it, and thinking there's a pill to cure it. There isn't. Some issues in mental health we have to face head on, and we're stronger for it because we're not broken by it. Secondly, there's an issue that I'm very particular about, and it's this: the value of exercise. Now, exercise in moderation. It begins with how I feel about myself. What's a failure and what's a success? What's a failure for some people can be an acceptable success for others. Some families, for example, expect all their children to be really perfect. If that child was in another family, it would be perfectly normal to fail an odd time. And so parents, communities, schools need to be careful not to be putting too much pressure on people, and to understand that success is doing the best you can in the circumstances given to you. You shouldn't be asked to be better than you can possibly be. All you're asked to be is to be as good as you can possibly be. Do the best you possibly can is what you're asked to do with the gifts that you have been given. Nobody's asked you to do more. If you do that, you will have contributed to the team, and if everybody does that, a team's unstoppable. There's a balance in life, then, is the last thing. A balance between spirituality. I think spirituality is hugely important in life. I have discovered that those who have a healthy spirituality are halfway to having a healthy mental health process, because we're holistic beings. We're emotional beings, we're physical beings, we're fat, we're thin, we're sick, we're well. But inside too, there's such a thing as emotional sense and a spiritual sense, emotional intelligence. You know, being good at knowing what's important and what's not important, what needs care and what's not doesn't need care. That balance is just perfectly rounded if we can just sit back every now and again and reflect. Go for a walk, which is I do every morning that I can. I go for a walk in the fresh air. I listen to birds singing, to cows lowing. I wipe the rain, as we always have in Fermanagh, off my face. I slip on the road. I have cars dooting at me, sometimes welcoming me and sometimes saying you're an awful idiot to be out on the road at this hour of the morning. And that's fine, but you're meeting people and you're delighted with that. So, physical exercise is hugely important. And lastly, and this is the one I fall down on mostly myself, is a balanced life between rest and work. If it weren't for football and music, I'd be a lot madder than I am. but it means that I need to, every now and again, sit back and take time to think. Some people would call that praying, and maybe it is. I just call it taking time to let life pass over, and when you put a distance between you and your troubles, you can actually get a better idea and a better judgment of how things are.